Jackson in the key. Kick out. Davenport.
A steal for Kentucky. Ahead to Reeves. Left wing three. Got it. Jackson weaves.
A dunk. Bounces off to Ada and he slams it home.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Student Section Podcast. This is a show all about college/NBA/ just hoops in general, and also more specifically SEC college hoops. But once again, just basketball in general. I got a good video today. Hopefully it's not too long because I do have a lot that I want to talk about. So I posted my playoff prediction video 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago once this video was up. And I held off on doing any sort of reactions because I wanted to wait till every single first round game is over, or series is over. So as I'm recording this, the Magic and Cavs series is over. It finally ended. But that does mean that we had one second round game happen. So basically in this video, I'm going to be recapping round one and predicting round two. So my predictions might be a little bit of a cheat just because I have seen one game. But it's only been one game out of the 4 series. And then again, it's just one game. But yeah, this video is going to start off kind of hot just because, and like I mentioned in that video that I posted, my original first round predictions for the playoffs, and mine's actually, I technically ended up predicting the entire playoffs, but just in the first round predictions of it, I had said that the Wolves are going to beat the Suns, and I believe I said it confidently, either in 5 or 6. And then in the comment section of that video, I got some backlash from a couple of different people. Not going to say their names, I don't want to throw them under just because here we are. Basically, they were saying that I'm dumb. I made a bad pick. Suns are going to win easily because they beat the Wolves 4 times in the regular season. That's pretty much the gist of it, or 3 times, however many times they played. They beat them every game in the regular season. And I remember seeing those comments and I was like, maybe they're kind of right to it. But then I was like, I mentioned the Suns have the worst fourth quarter offense in the league. It's pretty much just the top 3 and everyone else is kind of mid. So let's just get straight into the series. The one thing the series did teach us is that Anthony Edwards is a superstar. He is the best shooting guard in the league. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later with the whole superstar thing, just because it ties in with one more thing I want to talk about. But that'll be in the OKC series. I'm going to probably bring that up. But yeah, he proved, because for the past really this season, it was kind of a throw up. Like, who is the best shooting guard in the league? Is it Donovan Mitchell? Is it Devin Booker? Is it Anthony Edwards? For the past 3 years, it's pretty much been an argument between Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell. The consensus is pretty much Devin Booker. Most people think that he was the best shooting guard. But I think this series proved that Anthony Edwards is that guy. He's got the defense. He's got the IQ. He's got just the mentality. Which, don't get me wrong, Devin Booker also has that mentality, but Ant's got it to a different level, completely different degree. It's just been just watching him play is just insane. His athleticism, obviously, he every time he jumps, it doesn't look like he's he's really trying to jump high, but his head is at the backboard, smacking his head on the backboard. It's so unnatural looking. It's insane. Obviously, his offensive game has improved so much this year. His ability to hit that mid-range. He takes super tough shots and he makes them. He talks the trash. He talks the talk, walks the walk. He does all of it. Man, this Wolves team is amazing. I'm going to talk about them just a little bit more, but because once I do my predictions for the second round. But this Wolves team is insane because, in my opinion, they are the perfect built team. You talk about, they have their superstar in Anthony Edwards. And then they have a guy who is the second best player on the team that plays off of Ant in a different way. So you look at the Suns, right? Their top 2, even their top 3 players play the exact same way. They get to the mid-range and they shoot mid-range shots. They take tough mid-range shots. So there's not much variation between your superstars. That's why you look at people like Tyrese Maxey and Embiid. You look at Dame and Giannis. You look at Ant and Cat, or you can honestly say Ant and Gobert, whoever you want to say really for this team. But whenever you see the superstar duos or your 2 top players, you want them to play off each other. You look at Jokic and Murray. You want them to be able to play different styles of offensive game that they can play off of each other. And this team has that. They have the best defensive center in the entire league. I don't care what you guys say. There's so much discourse around Gobert saying that he can't guard on the perimeter. No center can guard the perimeter, right? Some centers can switch onto the perimeter and hold their own for a possession or two, but no one can guard. No center, not even Bam, not Victor, none of them can guard a guard. You can't. They're too slow. While yes, they are taller, but they're too slow. They don't have that experience guarding the perimeter. They're too slow to get any sort of steals. That it doesn't work. And we saw this series that Gobert, once he does get switched onto perimeter player, he can hold his own. That's been a just discourse and like a consensus idea around him for a while, but he's proved that that is not true. And honestly, it never really was true. It's just kind of people Twitter. They talk on Twitter. They just love to hate. Shout out whoever said that. So I'm sure someone said that. Historically, they love to hate. I know a lot of people probably have, honestly. But yeah, on the flip side of things, Bradley Beal. This was a tough series for him. I don't know if I said this before, but Bradley Beal is definitely my favorite player in the league. He's just a funny guy. I love his game, his ability to get to the rim, to shoot the mid range. He's a true 3-level threat. Hold up, I'm not even done talking about the Timberwolves. I just went on a whole tangent. Sorry. Once again, another late recording. The bed not made. I'm going all over the place. I was talking about Gobert. That's right. And then so they have Ant. They have a Cat who can play off of their superstar. So they have that two top player tandem. They have the best defensive center in the league. They have Mike Conley, who is one of the greatest point guards in the league right now. Hold on, let me finish. At just managing the game. He has so much experience, so much just veteran leadership. He can shoot the ball if needed. He can score if no one else was able to score. He can do that. The Wolves. Hold on, I'm gonna get to this later. But yeah, they have Mike Conley who can make the right plays. He's 100% a pass first player. He doesn't care if he scores, but he will score if he needs to. He plays a little bit of defense. At this age, he's not really the best defender, but he definitely sits in the chair. And then they have Jaden McDaniels, who's just an absolute perimeter lock. We all know the quote, they have Kevin Durant, but we got Jaden McDaniels, and that proved to be pivotal this series. I think it was either game 3 or maybe game 2, where he had a really good offensive performance, which saved them and allowed them to get this sweep. And obviously, everyone knows he's a defender. And then the bench of the Wolves, they have Naz Reid, 6th man of the year. They have Gilgeous-Alexander Walker, who's just grown into this just perimeter defender who can shoot the 3-ball. He's just turned into a 3-and-D player who gives a lot of effort on both ends of the floor. And I know the Wolves have a few other. They have Slow-Mo Kyle Anderson. They have a few more guys off the bench. But this team is it's so well built. It's insane. I don't know how they're going to look in the offseason. Maybe some guys, their egos might get in the way. We'll see. That's too far ahead in the future. Before I go back to Bradley Beal, I mentioned this a little bit, and I interrupted myself, basically. But the Wolves, their main concern going into the playoffs was their offense. They were the best defense in the league, undoubtedly. Everyone knew that. They have 5 guys on the court who can defend, except for Cat, but they can take him out. People knew they could defend, but people didn't know if they could score. And they proved this series. I mean, you saw the games you get from Mike Conley, Jaden McDaniels, Gilgeous-Alexander Walker had a few good offensive performances. You look at Cat, and even Gobert had some good offensive performances. Now, is that a testament to how good their offense is, or just how bad the Suns' defense was? We don't know until this next upcoming series, which we got a little hint at. But yeah, their offense has proved to be lethal, and the main part of that is, like I said, the bench people stepping, or the auxiliary pieces stepping up, and Anthony Edwards. He is just such a lethal scorer, and we see that in this series. We're going to continue to see it throughout his playoff run this year. He can score the ball. Okay, back to Bradley Beal. I was saying that he's my favorite player. It just sucks to see him in this role where he just wasn't playing that good. He's the third option, so it's kind of like he's not getting the ball as much as the other two, and once he does get the ball, he's not really in a rhythm. I think he might have been game 1 or 2 that he had gotten a little bit of a rhythm. He had a good fourth quarter in one of them. It just sucks. And to see him laughing in the timeout with Isaiah Thomas while they're down 2-0, it's just like, do you really care about winning? And he had the quote, This is one of the reasons why I kind of like him. But he had the quote where he's like, "I've never been swept in my life," and then after he got swept, he made a remark pretty much just making fun of himself, which, like I said, I like Bradley Beal because he's funny. He's a good basketball player. I love his game, his smoothness, but it's just like at some point you got to kind of have some urgency, and him acting like that is going to cause him to be part of like a scapegoat for this the Suns playoff disaster. And we saw in this playoffs that pretty much Kevin and Devin, they're like the only two players on this team that can really pull the offensive load. Grayson Allen was injured, so you didn't really get much from him. But Bradley Beal was decent. He wasn't super efficient. Eric Gordon doesn't really go out there do too much. Josh Okogie isn't going to do too much. You might get a dunk here and there from, man, I can't remember his name. He's from the Portland Trailblazers, got traded there this offseason. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. The Sun center. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. Drew Eubanks isn't going to really give you much either. So really, they only had 2 or 3 guys that were carrying the entire offensive load. That's just not how you build a team. There's a lot of critiques on this team. That's just not how you build it. Another thing I don't want to see is Frank Vogel be the scapegoat for this team. I've seen a lot of people wanting Vogel fired. You can't blame him for this. He didn't build the team. I've seen quotes about people saying, I forgot his name, but the guy that is the owner of the team right now, people say that he's too hands-on and he doesn't know what he's doing with it. That's why this team is so poorly built. He doesn't care about first-round picks. He's traded pretty much all of their picks that they can use away for this team they have now. And you can see there's no depth on the team. There's no depth. And this brings up the idea, is this the end of big threes? Because you've seen it with you've seen it now with the Warriors, OKC at one point a long time ago. The Warriors don't even really count because they beat those allocations. But the Nets, the Lakers, whenever they try to get Russell Westbrook, and we've seen a few other big threes that just don't do good because they spend all their money on the top 3 guys. They don't have enough money to build the auxiliary pieces. I'm going to bring this up a little bit more later. I keep saying I'm going to bring it up, but I will. I promise. I'm going to bring this stuff up more. But yeah, another thing I thought was kind of funny is the Wolves, in the year that Anthony Edwards was being drafted, he got drafted at number 1, obviously. The Wolves tried trading that pick, that number 1 overall pick, at least reportedly, but it was from some good sources. I think either Shams or Woj reported it, that the Wolves tried to trade that number 1 pick in 2020, but it ended up getting sent. They were going to try to send it to the Wizards for Bradley Beal, which is funny seeing how it played out now with Anthony Edwards being better than Bradley Beal this series, probably better than him just in general. I think that's not a crazy thing to say. And this is just a bad series for the Suns because, like, you're seeing Book being reportedly wanting to go to the Knicks. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know how they have the money, the trade assets. I don't know how that's going to work. And like I said, I had some haters. I'm going to just go ahead and talk my talk. I was right the whole time. You guys were talking down on me, making me seem like I'm dumb. I don't know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. I promise I know what I'm talking about. And I was right. And the Wolves did way better than I even thought they would. And I already thought they were going to be super good and winning it in 5 or 6. They won it in 4. They swept them. It wasn't even close. There was like one game that was kind of close. The Suns put up like a false fourth quarter run in the second or third game. They didn't win. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. But yeah, I just got to pop myself real quick just so the haters know that I'm here. I'm listening. I'm paying attention. I keep receipts. I'm here. But yeah, moving on to the next series, we got the Nuggets versus the Lakers. There's not really much to talk about. Everyone knows the Nuggets are good. They're the reigning champs. One of the other perfectly built teams, just like the Wolverines, the Timberwolves. The Nuggets have their 2 best players that play in tandem with each other. You have KCP guarding the perimeter. You got Michael Porter Jr., who's a Michael Porter, the possession ends here. No, Michael, the possession ends here, Porter Jr. The second he touches the ball, he shoots it. But you need a guy like that on this team. And Aaron Gordon, the perfect just Swiss Army knife, does everything on the court. I don't have to talk too much about the Nuggets. Obviously, we know they're good. Jokic is too good for LA. We all know the stat where they're like 14-1 against them, against the Lakers. But yeah, it's kind of scary seeing LeBron with that quote where he came out and said, it's just basketball at the end of the day. What does that mean? Everyone's already talked about it. Does that mean LeBron is going to leave soon? Does that mean he's leaving LA? Is he leaving the league? Like, what's going on? Is he going to stop trying to contend? I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I think LeBron's going to try and compete as long as he's in the league. And who knows, that might be another 40 years. He's already 70 years old playing in the league right now. He might be here forever. He might die before he retires. Who knows? But it is just a little scary seeing LeBron say that. Is he bored with the game? Is he tired of losing? Is that just him trying to put pressure on the front office? That's what I think it is. I don't think he's going anywhere. He has his family set up in LA. His son goes. Well, I guess his son isn't going to school in LA anymore. We'll see what happens with Bronny. But how is this Lakers offseason going to look after they have another first-round exit? They're constantly in the play-in. It's kind of hard to gauge what they're going to try and do. Do they trade AD? Do they trade LeBron? Do they just completely reset? Are they going to try and retool? I don't think D'Lo's coming back. I don't think there's one more player that is a free agent. I don't think he's coming back. What is going to happen with Austin Reeves? Should you return V8 Jared Vanderbilt? Should you return him? He hasn't been healthy that much this year. He barely played. Should you try and trade him away because he's not healthy? Get people who you know are going to be there constantly playing. It's kind of a rough thing for the Lakers. We'll see what happens. But as long as you have LeBron on your team, this is a team that you try to win. You don't have LeBron on your team and you're like, we're fine with making the play-in. That's why every year that LeBron has been with the Lakers, even if they don't even make the playoffs, people say that they're a team contending. Because if you have LeBron, you are contending. You're not looking for a deep playoff run. You're not looking just to make the playoffs. You're looking to win the championship. And another thing I want to talk about with LeBron teams is I'm kind of getting tired of LeBron teams. I don't know if it's LeBron himself. I would assume it is since he seems to be the common denominator, the common factor. LeBron teams always seem to scapegoat the coaches. I don't like it at all. I mean, historically, you look at Frank Vogel getting fired because of LeBron, Ty Lue getting fired to LeBron. LeBron wanted to fire coach Eric Spoelstra in Miami. And these are some of the best coaches in the league. You look at Ty Lue, he's widely known as being one of the best coaches as drawing plays, whether it's an ATO, whether it's just running sets and offensive motion. Everyone knows that X's and O's is Ty Lue's thing. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the Clippers and Mavs series, but I mean, you saw it in that series. He's able to draw plays out of ATOs, but we're not talking about them right now. Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches of all time, if not top 7, top 5 coach of all time. He's definitely the best coach in the league, hands down. Sure, he didn't win Coach of the Year, but Coach of the Year is more than just being a good coach. It's about having a good team. And Eric Spoelstra hasn't been dealt the best card. I mean, his teams haven't been the best. They haven't been the healthiest. The past 2 seasons, they've had the least amount of just consistency with health. They've been the least healthiest team. And it goes into the playoffs as you see that they were missing. I'm going to talk about that later. I'm getting way ahead of myself. Yeah. And Frank Vogel isn't as good as the other two, but he's a good coach. He's had some playoff success. He's had just some overall success, not just with the Lakers, but with other teams. I mean, for crying out loud, Frank Vogel won a championship and got fired the next year because LeBron didn't like him. And obviously it has to do with fans and stuff too. But it is kind of strange that LeBron teams, whenever they don't succeed, the blame gets put on the coach. And luckily for the Miami Heat, they never listened to LeBron's complaining. They didn't fire Eric Spoelstra. They stuck with their guys. And now look at them. They have the best coach in the league. Yeah, I just don't like that. And like I was just talking about, the Lakers have been through 4 coaches in the past 7 years. I think all that LeBron was there for all maybe 6 or 7. He's been there for most of those years, so he's a big part of the reason these coaches get fired. And I'm bringing this up because Darvin Ham just got fired. And now, maybe he wasn't the best coach, but at some point you have to look at the front office, you have to look at LeBron, you have to look at AD, you have to look at the whole team. It's not just the coach's fault. Everyone talks about how Darvin Ham just sits there with his hands in his pocket. What else do you want him to do with this team? It's not the best built team. We know this. We can't keep blaming the coaches for just the lack of success. And I'm not saying it's LeBron's fault, but I'm saying you have to hold him accountable as well as you hold everyone else on the team and the organization. You have to hold these people accountable, not just the coach. It's too easy to fire the coach and say it's his fault, even if it's not. Speaking of coaches, we're going to move on to the Thunder and Pelicans. We have some more coach talk here. Thunder, shout out Day Null for winning the Coach of the Year. Big ups to the Thunder. They're an amazing team. And the Thunder really did prove. So a lot of people doubted the Thunder. People thought they weren't going to have playoff success because of their age. But they proved age is just a number. Shout out Josh Giddey. Just kidding. No Josh Giddey. Sorry, that was kind of disrespectful. But yeah, they did prove it. I think this whole like concept slash theory of like people saying that you can't win playoffs if you're young, I think that's more so saying like you look at a team like the Magic, young teams that don't have that superstar, they're not going to have that playoff success. I think in order to have playoff success, you have to have a superstar no matter what team you are. And the Thunder have that. They have amazing supporting cast. They have amazing stars at the top. You look at Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a superstar I'm talking about. If you have a superstar, you can win a series. I don't care how old your team is. And speaking of age, they are officially the youngest team to win a playoff series. I think they're going to keep going. Talk about that. We'll save that for later. I'm saving a lot of stuff for later. I'm moving too fast. But yeah, this Thunder team just kind of feels like this big friend group, where it's just like you see it in all their post game conferences, you see it on the court, you see it off the court in commercials with Chet and Shai. What a pro wants, what a pro needs. I've heard a lot of hate on that commercial, but anyways, people think it's annoying. But yeah, this Thunder team they have, in my opinion, it looks like they have the best chemistry out of all the teams in the league. You can tell that they just love winning. You got Jalen Williams from Arkansas, who looks like the best hype man on the bench. Anytime anybody scores, no matter who it is on the bench, whether they're mad that they're not playing, which you never really see on this team, they're always happy for each other. They have the barking thing with their post-game conferences. Anytime they have a post-game conference, they never let it just be one player up there getting interviewed. It's pretty much the whole team up there with them. I love watching this team. They're so fun to watch. My only concern with them is we saw it with Chet. How is he going to fare against other bigs? You saw him get kind of beat up a little bit by Jonas Valanciunas, and it's not going to get much easier from here. Luckily, he doesn't have to go against I can't remember his name right now. Zubac. Everyone was calling him Zu-Alcindor. But he doesn't have to go against Zubac, so he has to go against either Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively, which aren't the biggest bruisers, but they are definitely bigger than Chet. And if they win this, they're going to have to go against Gobert, Cat, and Naz Reid, or they're going to have to go against Jokic. And we did see Chet struggle a little bit against Valanciunas this series just because he's not the biggest player. So that's probably their biggest weakness, other than just rebounding. It's just Chet's size against the big men in the playoffs. But a good thing about OKC is the torture chamber. You got Lou Dort. He put Brandon Ingram just in jail this entire series. He played really, really, really good defense, and I think that's going to carry over to the next series. I think it's going to be super important this next series, just because you're able to see what he did to Brandon Ingram. It's really impressive. Yeah. And OKC is they're going to keep going under the radar. They won this series in 4. They swept them. I haven't really seen much coverage over. You see more people talking about the Timberwolves, about the Knicks, about the Lakers. But this team is going really under the radar, and I think that's good for OKC. That is a good thing. You don't want to get too much attention, because then if you guys fall short this playoffs and you're getting all this attention, that's whenever you start getting the negative attention. So OKC fans, do not worry that your team is not getting any coverage. Just keep it that way for now. You don't want the coverage yet, I promise, because you don't want expectations. That's what you want. You don't want expectations. With this being pretty much your first playoff run with this team, a bunch of young players, you just don't want that. And man, on the other side of this series, I hate this for the Pels. They've had really bad health. They're kind of similar to the Miami Heat. They've had really bad health, really bad playoff health. They've been bottom seed the past few years. They keep getting beat by these top teams in the playoffs. They got beat by the Suns last year, or the year before. I don't think they made the playoffs last year, or they did and they ended up losing early. I don't know. They've just had really bad playoff luck. Just playing like the best team while being injured is just not good, and that's just Zion was injured this series. We saw Zion play really good in the play-in, putting up 40 against AD and LeBron, got injured eventually. I hate this for the Pels. I don't know what they're going to do this offseason. I would love to see a trade for Brandon Ingram and DeJounte Murray. I'd pretty much just swap whatever picks or any sort of auxiliary pieces they need to fill in cap space. I'd love to see that. I do want to see Ingram get moved this offseason, just because you can't have your two best players can't be always injured. You have to get rid of one of them. I don't think you get rid of Zion, because I think it's just too soon to get rid of him. And Brandon Ingram didn't have the best playoff series. He had a few games here and there, but it just wasn't overall a good series. So I would expect him to be the one to get moved if either of them. And I think you have to move either of them. And one thing I don't want to see is I've seen a lot of fans for some reason want to go and get Willie Green fired from the Pelicans. Don't do that, please. Just because you've had a bad season this year, it's not his fault. Injuries, just not the best team performances overall. Don't fire Willie Green. I think hopefully the leadership, the ownership of this team is smart enough to realize don't fire Willie Green. He's a good coach. I'm telling you, he's a good coach. If you fire him, someone's going to pick him up, and you guys are going to regret it. Do not fire Willie Green, please. If for some reason anybody from the Pelicans is watching this, do not fire him. And Pelican fans, stop hating this man, bro. It's not his fault you guys are playing bad this year. Sorry, I got to clean something off my screen. It's not his fault. Moving on to the next series. Hopefully I'm not taking too long. I'm trying to go through these quick and not waste too much time. This is probably, in my opinion, the most exciting series just because of the back and forth that was going on. You have Luka and Kyrie, just these dogs. They're so fun to watch. You can't stop them, really. And you have Paul George, James Harden, and honestly, Zubac is the third best player in this series. Just going at it. And once again, Harden, this is a weird series for him because normally Harden is the highlight of a playoff series, even with the 76ers, where if he plays good, everyone loves it. If he plays bad, it is everywhere. Everyone knows it. Everyone hates him. This was the first series where he played really good, and he had one game that he kind of stunk it up on, and no one really talked about it, which is good. You want that if you're James Harden. You got to start getting rid of that just constant hater on your name. Paul George played good as well. I think he had one stinker game as well that kind of hurt them, but it is weird seeing that the Clippers won the 2 games where Kawhi wasn't there, at least in the first 4. The 2 games that Kawhi wasn't there, and they lost the 2 games that he was there. Speaking of Kawhi, he just didn't look good. I'm glad they didn't try and force him to play. You could just tell he was not healthy. There was one time where he went up for a dunk and he hung on the rim for it felt like 10 seconds, but and whenever he landed, you could tell he was landed really gingerly, being very careful on that injured knee. Luckily the refs didn't blow a tech for him, but you could just tell he just wasn't healthy. And this was definitely the Mavericks winning this series is the best outcome for OKC. We'll talk about that as well. So yeah, not much to talk about throughout that series other than just Kawhi's health. Luka and Kyrie mainly Kyrie played out of his mind. And shout out Paul George, Harden, and Zubac for stepping up. Next series, we're moving on to the East Coast now. We have the Sixers versus the Knicks. This is the second most entertaining series in my opinion, maybe even the first. It's a toss-up between these two. But the first 2 games of the series, Jalen Brunson only shot 23% from the field, I believe, maybe 21, around that. And they still managed to pull out both those wins. You looked at the main factor really was Josh Hart's shooting that kept him alive. And once that shooting started to arise, people were like, okay, can they win games whenever he's not shooting? And you saw that with game 4 and 5. No, was it game 4 and 6? I don't even know. But you saw that. Even whenever he wasn't shooting good, they still managed to win. One thing that just really upset me this series was Embiid. Other than the fact that he was out of shape, which really isn't his fault. I predicted this was going to happen. I said he was going to be out of shape because he hasn't played pretty much the last quarter / third of the season he hasn't played. And he's just being thrown back into the fire. He's not healthy. He did have some really good games. I think he put up a 50 bomb. He put up a bunch of 30 bombs. But other than his actual scoring, you could just tell he wasn't very healthy physically or mentally. There was a lot of times where he's just making dumb turnovers, pretty much just giving the ball to the Knicks, just not running back in transition, trying to just draw tic-tac, knick-knack fouls, and he's not getting them just because he's too lazy to really try. And that's the main part I want to talk about is just Embiid's laziness. Just not running back on defense, like I just said, trying to get fouls instead of trying to score. There was one where he shot a 3 and did this dumb flop and stuff and trying to draw a foul, and he just looks dumb out there flailing his arms trying to get a foul on a play that obviously wasn't a foul. It's just, I hated this. And not to mention Embiid playing super dirty. Why is Embiid playing dirty, right? I mean, we saw the play where he's grabbing Isaiah Hartenstein out of the air, trying to pull him down. No, that was Mitchell Robinson. He had a lot of plays where he's elbowing people. He's elbowing Josh Hart, putting a shoulder in Jalen Brunson's face. He's pushing OG Anunoby, trying to shove Isaiah Hartenstein. You hate that. Because, a guy with Embiid who, first off, he's always injured. So why would you try and injure other people? Because you know how it feels to be constantly injured. And second off, people already don't like you. Why are you doing more stuff to make people hate you even more? People don't like you because you're foul baiting that you do. You used to be a Troel Embiid on Twitter. He doesn't really do that anymore. So why are you going out here and constantly putting other people in harm for what? Because you're mad that you're losing? Like, it's kind of like he was just constantly throwing a temper tantrum out there on the court, which is kind of embarrassing to see because at one point I did start to feel I used to be an Embiid hater because of the foul baiting and the Twitter stuff, the stuff I just mentioned. And then like the first few games of the series, I started to feel bad because like I could tell that he was upset with himself. He was upset with the outcome of his team. He was upset with his health. You could tell he looked sad. And then not to mention the Bell's palsy thing. It was like, man, he's playing Pokemon out here with all of his injuries. He's got to collect them all or something. But I started to feel bad for him, and he started to do that dirty stuff, and I'm like, dude, I don't feel bad for you anymore. Like, you're doing this to yourself, dude. It's just, it's ugly to watch. I do also want to mention real quick, moving on from the Embiid stuff, that I think the main reason that the Sixers were able to win Game 5, other than Maxi's performance, was Jalen Brunson the entire fourth quarter. Jalen Brunson is known as a guy. He can get to the mid-range. He has the best footwork in the league. He can finish around defenders. He can draw fouls. He's a mid-range / at-the-basket scorer. Not the best three-point shooter while he can shoot it. Game 5, he was settling way too much for threes. I feel like 3 or 4 possessions in a row, he brought the ball down, tried to freeze his defender with a hezzy, step back, pull up. He missed like 3 of them, maybe only hit 1. And then one of them is the play that we've all seen where he goes up, Batum is on him like a diaper, and he's forced to pass the ball, but he passes it out of bounds because he didn't think Isaiah Hartenstein was going to drive. Anyways, like in that sort of clutch situation, you don't want to see Jalen Brunson settling for threes, trying to draw fouls instead of just scoring the way you know he can. A little scary for like in terms of like clutch performances for Jalen Brunson, which is your best player. But other than that, he played pretty good this series, other than the first 2 games I mentioned. The Sixers, with your offseason, if you're a Sixers fan, this is probably the part for you. They have $60 million this offseason to spend on players. One thing they need to do, they need to re-sign Kelly Oubre Jr. He had an amazing series, even though he's not going to go out there and score. But his defense on Brunson, just his hustle throughout the game, he can score whenever you need it to. Re-sign him. He's not hopefully not too expensive. Tobias Harris, do not re-sign him if he's asking for more than $12 million. This playoff series, he did horrible, scored 0 in the last game, game 6. Do not sign Tobias Harris if he wants more than $12 million. If he wants more than 12, you should be happy to let him walk. That you can spend that money elsewhere. This is a pretty good free agency class in terms of role players, not too top heavy. But speaking of top heavy, because they have that $60 million, they can pay for a top heavy player. I'm looking at DeMar, maybe Klay Thompson. He's not really top heavy anymore, but mainly DeMar and Paul George out of this free agency class. Those are kind of guys that you could pick up. But going back to that big 3 thing I mentioned, don't build a big 3. Please don't build a big 3 with him, with Embiid, Paul George, and Maxey. We've seen it doesn't work. But, I mean, they have the money. They could get those auxiliary pieces, but you're going to have to pay Maxey soon. You're going to have to re-sign Embiid soon. You have a lot that you need to work on. I would focus on building stars, not stars, but the perfect role players around your 2 stars, like what the Nuggets do. I don't want them to see them go out and get big names, start chasing, doing things that they shouldn't be doing with trades. Just stick with the guys you got and build around them. Don't try and build a super team because you see it doesn't work. And just the final critique with Embiid is that he doesn't have a conference finals. You look at the top 10, top 15 players in the entire NBA. All of them have conference finals appearances except for Ant and Shea, and they have a really good chance at making that happen this year. So Embiid, playoff success, kind of bad. Moving on to Bucks versus Indiana. I'm trying to move quick, sorry. No Giannis, no rim pressure. You saw that. Pretty much the only person that can put pressure on the rim is Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, and Dame. And Dame didn't really do that until like the game 3, 4, or 5. But yeah, they also ended up missing Dame. That hurt them, obviously. Pascal had field days without Giannis guarding him because no one else is really fast enough or tall enough to guard him. You look at Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis out at Arkansas. Middleton, he obviously had a sketchy year this year and last year with just he's not healthy anymore. But whenever Middleton does play in the playoffs, he plays amazing. He's such a clutch player. You can rely on him to score, no matter how healthy or unhealthy he is. Halliburton struggled this series. Not much else to talk about other than just the Bucks having injury history the past like 3 postseasons in a row. 4 if you want to count the year before that. Giannis might start getting hate though because of his just the past 3 years where they've had these really early exits. You look at last year and this year, both first round exits. Not really his fault because he was injured for both of them actually. But yeah, and Brook Lopez, his body language. He's another guy like Embiid. He just doesn't hustle. He gives no effort. He has bad body language. It's like, dude, you got to support your team. I don't know if you guys remember early in the year whenever Dame hit that buzzer beater to win the game. Brook Lopez was calling for the ball, and it's like, bro, you got Dame right there, the most clutch three-point shooter in the history of basketball. I don't want to hear it. He's better. He's more clutch than Steph Curry in terms of hitting buzzer beaters. But yeah, and the Pat Bev temper tantrum was the last thing I kind of wanted to mention. It's like, Pat, like, really? Like, people just keep, like, you're making yourself look bad. Throwing a basketball at people because you're mad. Throwing a temper tantrum, really? And people are bringing up the fact that what is Pat Beverly doing out there other than being, like, a locker room kind of guy? He's just running around. Like, bro, step it up. Do something. The next series I want to talk about is the Cavs versus the Magic. All right, now hopefully I put the edit in. And I know the Magic didn't win, so if I did put that edit in, I was really hoping the Magic would win so I could put that edit in, but they didn't. The Cavs ended up winning the series, but Garland wasn't really there for like the first 5 games of the series. He did step up near the end. Evan Mobley, you want to see him get that offensive growth, which people kind of predicted him to get, but he hasn't really grown much offensively. He's hitting a little more threes, but he's not a three-point shooter. So don't let that fool you. The Magic defense was solid, but one thing that they're just missing is someone who can score the ball other than Franz or other than Paolo. Other than those two, they didn't really have someone they could consistently go to get buckets. You have a little bit of Cole Anthony, but the first 2 series, he didn't even make a shot. So, with that being said, what should Orlando do this offseason? I would love to see them spend some of those those draft picks they have and go get Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole does not fit the Wizards. We've seen it this year. He's not a main star that you want to build around. So send the Wizards some picks, maybe some young guys like Jet Howard, maybe Anthony Black if you really want to. If I were you guys, I'd keep him. But send some young guys and picks over to Wizards, help jumpstart their rebuild, and you can get Jordan Poole, who we've seen in a bench role with the Warriors whenever they won that finals. Sorry, whenever they won the finals. He played amazing out of his mind that whole series, that whole year, the year before that, a little bit the year before that, but not as much. But he's the guy that you can consistently rely on to come off the bench in limited minutes and score the ball. He's not the most efficient sometimes, but he can be super efficient. He takes tough shots, makes tough shots. And if you need to, you can put him in the starting lineup. As long as he's not your main primary scorer, he can be a threat. I would love to see the Magic go and get Jordan Poole. But with that aside, the last series is the Heat versus the Celtics. We knew the Heat was going to win. The Celtics were going to win? Is there really anything to talk about other than the fact that Hero had his best game pretty much of his entire NBA career in Game 2? Tatum is under the radar in terms of how good he's playing, and missing Butler and Rozier for the Heat. Didn't really expect much out of them. I am really surprised they got that first game. And Bam was really good too. He's another guy who went under the radar. Pretty much everyone in this series went under the radar. You saw Derek White have some good games as well, especially Jaylen Brown. The only person that's a little worrisome is just Porzingis and his health. That's pretty much the main worry you have for the Celtics. But yeah, other than that, that is that. All right, hopefully this episode is wrapping up soon. I don't want to take up too much time. I'm pretty much been talking for an hour now. The first series I do want to cover is the games that we've already seen a little bit, is the Wolves versus the Nuggets. I do just want to mention that the Wolves, in my series before this, or my episode talking about predicting, I did think the Wolves were going to beat the Nuggets. I did predict that. At least that's what I think is going to happen. We did see the Wolves go out and win game number 1. The Wolves have a so much deeper bench. I've already talked about their full team, but they have a deeper bench than the Nuggets, which will help in a playoff series. But the Nuggets are the reigning champs. They have the chemistry. They have the consistency with each other. but the Wolves have a little bit of that consistency as well. One thing I do hate, and you saw it a lot this game, is just there are certain times where Cat goes out there and just does the dumbest fouls I have ever seen, like zero basketball IQ. Like, what are you doing? There was one time in the fourth quarter where Aaron Gordon had a wide open dunk. Just let him dunk it. He's already up in the air about to dunk it, and for no reason, Cat just goes up there and slaps his arm. He makes a dunk. He gets the free throws. I don't remember if he made the free throw or not, but he gets a 3-point play off of just a dunk. Like, bro, what are we doing? And he also fouled Jamal Murray on a 3-point shot that Jamal Murray ended up making, giving him a 4-point play. I think he missed the free throw, but he still had the chance at a 4-point play. It's like, dude, you had a late closeout. Stick to the closeout. You weren't going to contest a shot anyways. Why are you jumping and fouling him on a 3-point shot? That's all I want to talk about with that series. I do still believe that the Wolves are going to win. And the main reason I think that is because the Wolves have one of the best off-ball defenses in the league, let alone on-ball. But their off-ball defense, the way they're able to switch pretty much everything. They have long, lanky guys that are tenacious defenders. You look at all the guys I mentioned pretty much. You have Mike Conley, you have Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, you have Gilgeous-Alexander Walker. These are guys that can defend like 1 through 3, some of them 4 through 2. But they can guard a lot of people, which means they can switch, which the Nuggets have a lot of off-ball movement. So you have a team that can guard off-ball. That is going to help them a lot because they have the bigs that can guard Jokic one-on-one, and they have the perimeter defenders that can guard the off-ball movement like Jamal Murray, MPJ, and KCP. You have people who can guard that. So I do think that the Wolves are going to win this series. I'm sticking to my original prediction. And I think the only prediction I got wrong in the first round was Indy, and that was it. Was it? I think that was it. I only got the Bucks and the Indiana series wrong. I really wanted the Clippers to win, but I predicted the Mavericks to win, and they came through. And another one was the Cavs. I don't believe I picked the Magic, but I wanted the Magic to win. Cavs ended up winning. So I only got one series wrong so far. So I'm up. And the only reason I got that series wrong is because Giannis was injured. But if he was there, I believe I would have gotten a complete 100% in this first round. Maybe I'm being a little bit of a boisterous, but next series is going to be the Celtics versus the Cavs. Celtics in 5. The Cavs, they didn't have the best offense this past series, and who knows, maybe that's the Magic's fault. But their defense is decent. They're not beating the Celtics. I'm sticking to my original pick. I think the Celtics are beating the Cavs. Next round is going to be the Indy versus the 76ers. I'm going to go ahead and say the Knicks. The Knicks versus Indy. I'm going to say Knicks in 5. Because they do have the size. They do have the players that can guard Pascal Siakam. You'd probably end up seeing OG Anunoby on Pascal and probably like Josh Hart or Dante DiVincenzo on Halliburton. But I just think the Knicks are just going to be the better team. They can guard their 2 best players. The only thing the Knicks are going to have to worry about is just running in transition, because you look at the Knicks, they are a bit of a slower-paced team. And they love to send like 3 or 4 bodies to offensive rebounds, so they're not going to have as many guys to run transition defense because they're too worried about getting offensive rebounds. But Thibs is a good coach. I think he will be able to adjust to that, change his scheme a little bit. But you look at Thibs, he doesn't really change the scheme much because it does work. But against a team like Indy, you're going to have to change your scheme to win this series. And I think they're going to end up winning it in 5. But it could possibly go to 7, but I want to just go ahead and predict 5. I'm going to go ahead and lock in 5. All right, going to the West Conference. I've already made my prediction on the Wolves and the Nuggets. So the last one I'm going to make is going to be the Thunder versus the Mavs. I've already kind of hinted that this is the best outcome for the Thunder. You don't want to face the healthy Clippers team with all the wings they have. You don't really have enough people to guard that, and they are a better defensive team than the Mavericks. So with the Thunder, because the Mavericks aren't the best defensive team on the perimeter-wise, that is going to help Thunder out a lot. No one to really guard J-Dub, no one to guard Shea. They don't really have the pieces to guard guys like Isaiah Joe. And then not to mention that the Thunder have plenty of personnel to guard their big 2 for the Mavericks. You look at Shea, obviously I just mentioned him. J-Dub, once again a guy I just mentioned. Cason Wallace has been an elite defender. There's a few possessions that for some reason the Pelicans last series tried to switch and get Cason Wallace on them. Do they not have a scouting report for Cason Wallace? We know he is a perimeter defender. He's a rookie, but he's a perimeter defender. That is one thing with Cason Wallace that is not going away no matter how old he is. He's a perimeter defender. And then they also have Lou Dort, like I've already mentioned earlier, the Dortcher Chamber. They have perimeter defenders that can put this team away. I really, really am very confident with Thunder in 6. I'm very confident with Thunder in 6. All it takes is a few. You saw last series, there was a few bad games from Luka. If one of the top two has a bad game, the Thunder are winning undoubtedly. If they both have a good game, it's more of a 55-45 toss-up in favor of the Thunder. I think the Thunder comfortably win in 6. That is all my predictions for this upcoming round 2 of the conference finals, or this conference semifinals. Hopefully I wasn't too much of like just all over the place. I know I was, but it's because it's kind of a late recording like I mentioned earlier. I try to take not really notes, but just kind of guidelines so I wouldn't get too off track, and hopefully that helped me stay on track for each series I talked about, stay on topic. But yeah, I appreciate you guys if you made it this far. I love you. Yeah, I hope you guys have a good night. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you leave a like, maybe subscribe if you like this content. I do want to say, if you're going to subscribe, expect some more college content, because that's what I cover. But yeah, I'm not afraid to cover the NBA. Like I said, I do watch the NBA, so I know what I'm talking about. At least I like to hope I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, to those haters, stop spitting out other people's just opinions. You guys are just regurgitating what other people are saying. Think for yourself. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.